But here we are today, or the day after, and now they're coming back to it. And they're saying, what do we have to do to receive the blessings of God? What works do we have to do? And you guys aren't getting it. It's not about the works. It's about your faith. The true food is that which is given by the Son, who was sealed by the Father. They were ignoring everything Jesus had done up to that point. They had seen countless miracles to that point. The miracle at Cana, his first miracle. There were healings and provisions. This is after he fed the 4,000, which is found in the other three Gospels. And there were castings out of demons. They had seen all of this. They'd been witness to it. And yet they still wanted a sign. They still wanted to know what to do. And they wanted that sign, like Moses' provision in the wilderness. I don't know about you, but manna. When the Bible describes manna, to me it sounds like homemade Play-Doh. The consistency of it. That's what I picture when I hear the manna just formed as dew on the leaves of the plants. And they picked it up, they took it home, and when they put it on the plate, it magically turned into steak and eggs. Whether they saw that or not, that's what they tasted. That's my personal, but that's how I see the manna supply in the Old Testament. Now, the day before, not 24 hours earlier, Jesus supplied them with cooked bread and fish. Cooked. Right. Kneaded, mixed together, and ready to eat. Right. Baked. Moses didn't do that. All Moses did was, remembering that Moses did not make the supply. God made the supply. Right. All Moses did was supply manna from heaven. Manna. Bread. Loosely, I guess you could call it bread. Like I said, that's just my thought on what the manna was.
Some natural creation of food that had what it had in it, the nutrients and whatever they needed.
Right.
And whatever it was, whatever God made it out of, we don't really know.
Right.
But it was just God-made and not man-made.
Right. But they could see it.
Right. They could gather.
They walked out and they actually gathered it.
Right.
Here, Jesus gave them bread and fish out of a basket. I wish I had a basket.
Yeah.
And they didn't have to go gather it at all.
Yeah, it was
right.
It was handed to them.
Yeah. Here, let me borrow your purse.
Oh, thanks. Put the fish and loaves on your purse.
Well, when you think about it, that kid's lunch basket probably wasn't much smaller than this bag.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
And here they were. You got 12 disciples walking around with this bag, and they just kept reaching in.
Right.
Here you go.
Yeah.
Here's your fish and loaves.
Right.
Here's your fish and loaves. And they did this to 20,000 people.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Scripture was in my mind. He said,
the bag don't empty just like Santa Claus.
Mary Poppins.
Mary Poppins. They're walking around doing this. They didn't have to do anything. They didn't have to work like they did for the manna.
This is a comparison thought. Talking about Moses supplying. Christ said, "No way these things shall I do. The greater things I do shall ye do." He told his disciples he would do greater. He would do more. So we got that promise given to us. I think also, how in the world, who do we find that could manage 5,000 families, get them all set down properly, and organized 50s? I don't know if anyone could do it.
No. Like I said, Moses said, one will come that's greater than I am. Right. Jesus said, I'm going to send you out, you're going to do greater than I did.
Shows a businessman, his business attribute that Christ had.
Right.
People say he means nothing today. Well, he was a businessman. He's number one businessman. He's the first legal advisor to mankind in the Bible. And He's those provisions that man needs.
Right. Yeah, and,
It was just like when, when Peter came back in with the boat and said, we didn't catch nothing. And then Jesus went back out with him in the boat.
throw it off
And
this side instead.
throw your net
Your
out.
own place.
Throw your net out here on this place.
Yeah, amen.
And it's all of a sudden they had more that they couldn't even fill the boat
Yeah.
with that much,
Right.
And he's saying, well, that was the first clue right there,
What's the matter with your faith?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
that's what-
So,
Yeah, and like I said, we can look back and we see that the sent one is Jesus. Okay, but I mean, if you read through that, you can see that Jesus is alluding to the fact, and this is really the first time that Jesus is claiming to be the Son of God. It's kind of metaphorically and hyperbolically. I'm sorry I used the big words, but I can't think of any other ones right now. Jesus but he said that's only a certain people, only the people that God wanted to understand that would understand it. And we know he was sealed because we read at his baptism that a dove came down upon him and a voice came from heaven, from God, that said, "This is my son, whom I am well pleased, in whom I am well pleased." So we know that God put his seal on Jesus that day.
Amen.
As his sent one. And when I read this story, I think of the parable that Jesus told about the landowner who hired people to run a farm, and he sent somebody, they killed him. They sent somebody, they killed him. So he said, all right, fine, that's enough. I'm sending my son. So he sends his son. What do they do to him? They beat him up, almost kill him. See the parallels here? What did the people do to Jesus? God sent his son. They beat him up and killed him.